Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Jan Erickson from Stepping Aside, and welcome to Somewhat Daily Tarot and Rune for the 15th day of April, 2019. Well, I've done this a few times already. I actually got through the whole thing. I was listening to it, and most of it was fine, but I made some errors on the numerology because, when you are my age and you resort to that doing math in your head, it doesn't always work out. And I actually corrected it at one point and then dove right back in head first into the error all over again. So I don't think any notations in the comment section are going to fix that. So I thought, well, I'm just going to do this whole thing all over again. I don't know. It happens. Anyhow, if this is your first time here, this is just the way it goes. So anyhow, welcome. I appreciate you coming by. If you've been here before, thanks so much for coming by again. I do appreciate y'all. Click subscribe if you haven't. I'd love you to do that. And let's get started again. We'll get the first card and see what it's going to be this time, this go around for today. What I originally drew was on the other one. I'll just share it with you. I drew the 7 of Wands, the 8 of Swords, and the 5 of Cups, and Fehu. The rune was Fehu. And where I went wrong is I decided that 8 and 5 was 11 instead of 13. It just went downhill from there. And I mean, it was interesting. It was about not getting in the way of oneself and setting boundaries and standing in your own power and all of that. So if that sort of arises for you today, just know today has the energy to do that. Anyhow, that was the first reading for today. Let's do the second. See, you get a twofer today. Well, we have the King of Cups. Well, he's an emotional basket case, this King of Cups. He's a little passive aggressive. His throne is on the water. You can see that you can see the movement. It's doing this. So I wouldn't say it's choppy, but there's a lot of emotional upheaval with this guy. He doesn't look you directly in the eye or anything. He's got a little scepter in one hand and he's got his chalice in the other. I think you can see, let me grab my magnifying glass here, but I think over here to his left, our right, yeah, you see some boats. Looks like there's a fish jumping over here. You can see if you look down here, and I'll show you this, his shoes are scaly. See that? But being emotional, he can be very passionate. He can be very compassionate. He can really care about the people in his kingdom, but at the same time, when he's not in balance, when his emotions are not in balance, then he tends to be fairly passive aggressive. And so he can't really come to the center with people. He can't come to a balanced perspective. He's kind of all over the place, typically guided by emotion. But as always, if I draw a court card, I have to draw another one. Originally, when I started this whole YouTube deal, I was just doing one card and one rune, and I just wanted to see how they interacted. But then, of course, the first card I would draw, that one card would be a court card, and you can't really just draw one. They need something to interact with, because it isn't just about a single concept. It could be this authority person, this male person in authority who doesn't know how to manage that authority very well. He's a little too subjective, maybe, instead of objective, whereas the King of Swords would maybe be accused of being too rational and not emotional enough, not letting enough of his heart come into play. But in this case, maybe the heart is too much in play, and maybe he's just too fussy. So you're looking at the individual or the qualities of the individual. So you never really know without some kind of interaction, do you? So that's why I decided at some point I was drawing, more than one card anyway. So, because I was always drawing court cards. So it's like higher self is going, okay, this one card thing isn't going to work, right? You're going to have to do more. So it became clear right off the bat that I couldn't get away with that. So anyhow. But I still say it because I think it's important to understand about court cards that you're not dealing with just, like the six of pentacles, that's shared abundance. Okay. It's really about, one concept and maybe a lot of different manifestations of that one concept, but it's one concept. Here, no, not the court. The court's weird. So anyhow, let's do another card. Well, here we have the card of change. So this is the 16th card of the major arcana, and it's the Tower. We see lightning has blown the top off the tower. We've got people falling out, debris everywhere. This is actually a positive card. It is about change. If this were the 16th day of the month, then it would align with that, but it's the 15th. But energetically, it is a 7 number. So you kind of see balance reflected in that too. You've got, in a sense, you're looking at a depiction of the scales, righting the ship, basically, bringing things back into balance. In a sense, you could look at the two individuals as dark and light, couldn't you? The Tower is about transformation, but it's also about righting the ship and bringing things back into balance. So maybe we're having a difficult time with our emotions, and higher self comes in and says, okay, I need to take over here and remind you of who you are. And you need to pull back and take a look at things more objectively, maybe. So perhaps our emotions are getting the best of us with the King of Cups, and now something has happened, perhaps externally, to shake us up a little bit and to bring us out of our single-minded focus, maybe. Oops, I dropped a card there. Yeah, that's what I would say. Now, we don't on the numerology consider that for the King of Cups. But if you did, it would be, the court would be, cards 11, 12, 13, and 14. And so the king would be a 14. And so that would be a 5 numerology. So that's definitely change. Water is about change. It's about movement. Water moves. Hopefully, otherwise it stagnates. So we need to be in motion always. But at the same time, sometimes you have to come to that resting point to where you can really take stock of things. That's an interesting part about the 7. I depict it as scales. And if you look at it in terms of the scales, it would be 3 on serving as each pan of the scales, right? 3 and 3, and then the 1 being the center resting point, the point of balance. So it would be the 4. If you look at, I believe, the 4th ray is harmony through conflict. Is that what that is? I don't know. But in any event, it's basically the still point or the resting point where you allow for everything to come back into balance. That's, out there everywhere. You just sit there and you hold it. It's like holding a pendulum, and then having it move and then have it finally come back to rest. You're providing that still point for whatever is going on to come to rest and to resolve itself, maybe. Or then to observe the process. That's another aspect of it. You're sitting in observation of something instead of getting emotionally involved with it. Maybe the transformation is to take emotion out of it so much and to try to bring that a little more into balance with, head and heart, basically, with mind and emotion. Let's draw the third card, though, see if we can get a little more information. Well, here we have the Eight of Wands, and then we started out the first reading for today. We started out with the Seven of Wands, where we were standing in our own power. Literally, the guy is standing up on a cliff or a mound or a precipice or whatever. And that's another aspect of that is you're standing on the precipice, and he's got six other staffs coming up at him from below, and you don't see who's attached to them or anything, but they're just down there, and everything's coming at him, and he's like, no more. I'm going to stand my ground, and these are my boundaries. And so here, I think that we have a lot of will being manifested here, maybe some swift change. But you see, they're not all at the same place either. You see one that's kind of back. The other seven are pretty much in balance, but you've got that one straggler there. But here you have a lot of things happening, a lot of will being manifested. It could be that simply our emotions have just gotten the better of us, and we're behaving in ways, or something is happening to us that is maybe someone else, a position of authority, is really not of sound mind, basically, does not know how to be a person in authority, maybe, is someone who's overly emotional, that overreacts, maybe is manipulative. And then something happens to come in and change all of that, to maybe bring things back to balance. So I'm not sure here. I think that maybe what I want to do is I want to put the Tower at the end. I want to check one thing here on this 8, though. No, I'm going to put it at the end. Yeah, I'm going to put it at the end, definitely. This is about moving now. Whereas the 7, he was standing there establishing boundaries. This is action. In a sense, the 7 is kind of a standoff. And, you're putting up the gate. You're blocking the gate. You're saying, this is as far as we're going to go. But this has gone maybe a little bit too far. Perhaps the king has done something here that is causing so much consternation, that's causing so much trouble, that we need to blow the lid off of things in order to stop him. And so we need to come together in unity to contend with this king. So whoever the king is in your life, if it's you, maybe you need to break through any difficult emotions that you're expressing. Maybe you need to bring your emotions back into balance, where maybe head and heart is a little more balanced for you, particularly in terms of your ability to express power. But it also could simply be that the king has created a situation here that folks need to now act about. That things have gotten so far out of whack that the authority figure is not helping the situation. The authority figure is actually harming the situation. Now, the other thing here, this could be decisions made too quickly. You just have all of this movement, very, very quick movement. So if we move it into the center, if we have the King of Cups as the first card, the Eight of Wands as the next card, and the Tower, then we could have things that are out of control, will and emotions, maybe, especially in terms of authority and how someone is expressing authority. At least with the Swords suit, that's air, that's intellect. At least with that, typically, unless the authoritarian and even the King of Wands, but the King of Swords or even the King of Wands, they can get really out of control, right? with the King of Wands expressing far too much will and too much authority. Well, so can the King of Swords, but there he's gonna try and rationalize everything, right? But here, I think that we have it is yeah, I think what we have here is too, because this is always a card of too much, okay? Too much energy, too much movement, too much coming in, the effect of something. So I would say it is the effect of the king, being passive aggressive or manipulative or whatever. So someone in authority not handling that well, expressing their will in a way that's destructive to people, that's harmful to people, doesn't express compassion, doesn't express the greater understanding of what's at stake, very wrapped up in their own maybe narcissism or egomania or something like that, but the focus is on them. It's not on other people. Instead of being the compassionate ruler, instead what he is someone who is the opposite of that. And so it seems to me that at that point, then things have to come back to balance. Even if it takes blowing the roof off the tower to do it, that at some point, all of that thing is going to then create the friction within to then manifest something else. But what you have to do sometimes to do that is to just blow the lid off the tower, okay, and let it all settle out and come back to its own. It's like water seeking its own level, It might slosh around a bit, but eventually it settles down, right? And that's what this needs to happen. Emotions need to settle down. Will needs to settle down, and it looks like an external force is going to need to control the king, or the outcome of this authority figure, the outcome of these decisions, the outcome of this behavior is going to have to do something to bring all of that back to balance. Let's draw a rune though and see. That's really interesting. But you see the effect of when you start to move things around, particularly when you do them in a random way. Even if you do lay them out, if I were to lay them out in order and not do it randomly, you can still move these cards around and have them tell the right story, because, this is the whole idea about it. You're basically telling a story from these cards, and they got to make sense. I mean, sometimes it's all random, but very often it's not, and most of the time it's not. So they're always going to tell a story of some kind. Well, here we have Yura, which is a catalytic rune. It is the 12th rune of the Elder Futhark, so a 3 energy. It moves energy through the body. It moves energy in a balanced energy exchange, similar to Gebo, only with Gebo it's an X, and so you're kind of here, really, in a sense, after it comes to a resting point, and everything's in balance. But here, this is about movement. Okay, so we're going to move energy. It's an as above, so below rune. You can see that as evidenced by the hierarchical, but you're also looking here at Kenaz, forward and reverse, which is known as the torch. Kenaz is the 6th rune of the Elder Futhark, and so that's higher self energy. And basically what that's telling you is that Yura is about fertility. It can be included in a bind rune for gardening. I've done that. I have this bind. I'll get it and show it to you guys sometime. But it's got several runes that I created a bind rune out of, and I have the witch rune for harvest on one side, and then this bind rune on the other. And so I have them. I wood burned them into I don't even know what. Maybe it was willow. I don't remember. But anyhow, I burned them into these larger pieces of wood. And I have them hanging around in my greenhouses and little places around that I have little garden spots. And so just to increase harvest. And so, but Yura, again, it's about growth. It's an earth element rune. It brings events to pass. It's about transformation and balance. you can see almost the transforming energy moving, as above, so below, about spirit informing our physical presence here in life. It represents cyclical. It's a cyclical type of an energetic influence. Uh, it also aligns energies in relationships, and that's the one I was looking for, I think. Um, the thing about the King of Cups, I mean, if you've been here before, you know that I don't particularly care for kings. The only one I actually like, if I like any of them at all, is the King of Pentacles. And even he is a little much. So personally, I think the queens are where it's at, but that's just me. Anyhow, what we have here with the King of Cups, though, is a man that is typically passive aggressive. Now, we all can be passive aggressive in our lives, where maybe we're trying to. I mean, a good example would be to say, "Yeah, I'm really hungry," and then sit there and wait for somebody to get up and fix you something. Not, "Gee, I'm hungry and I don't feel like fixing anything. Is there anyone in the house that might like to cook something for me?" And then everybody else would be like, "No." However, in a passive aggressive household, all that person has to do is say, "Yeah, I'm hungry." And I mean, I'm not kidding. People will literally sprint to the kitchen to make that person something because they're stuck in that weird, manipulative energy of the passive aggressive individual who cannot see. It's like you're trying to make up for it or something that they cannot do. I don't know. It's bizarre, but when you get somebody that's like that, and I just typically view the King of Cups as someone who's passive aggressive, who just can't really get it together and deal straight with people. They want to manipulate all of the time. And when the Tower, see, and I think that Yira is going to align well with the Tower because we're bringing things back into balance. We're getting rid of everything. We're letting it all fall down, and we're going to see what's left. We're going to take stock of what we have. We're going to begin anew. We're going to transform into a better place, right? Well, Yira is providing us the spirit energy to do all of that. It's bringing the as above, so below energy and experience and interaction into our lives and allowing then for things to settle down and be more in balance. So if our emotions and our will, maybe if we've just kind of gotten out of control, then let's just blow the lid off of it all and allow it all to come to rest and really see what's true. Because that's the other side of this. Sometimes we get carried away with our will and we don't see the forest for the trees. We get caught up in what we believe is true, but it isn't. And so allowing things to settle out and allowing spirit to inform the process, it gives us a chance for that to unfold. So in any event, I'm not even going to add these two numbers together in my head because I know I'm not going to get it right. So anyhow, I'm not even going to tell you what the overall numerology is. Figure it out. 8 and 7. Well, okay, so that's what, 15? Because that's a 7 number. So 15, so 6. Yes. And it happens to align with today being a 6. So yeah, so we have to allow higher self to come in today. Well, see, I couldn't help myself. I don't think I got that wrong. Yeah, 7 and 8 is 15. That reduces to 6. Okay. It blew me. I was listening to it was like 20 minutes long, and or it was more than 20 minutes, like 25 minutes long. And it's like, what did I do? And then I undid it and fixed it. And then I just dove right in again. In any event, it ended up being better because this actually is in synchronicity with today. So 6 energy today, definitely. Yira, higher self energy. So cool. Yeah, so either this describes something that we're going through ourselves and we need to just simply allow all that to fall away and to allow the spirit to just take over here and guide us here. Or we're experiencing this in our personal lives with somebody else, who's maybe in a position of authority, either, in our household or in our job or just in the world at large. We're experiencing something that is, maybe a battle of wills, maybe a battle of emotion with will. Um, but when that happens, you see rationality flies out the window, so does truth, all of it. And so maybe today we just allow for things to come to a resting point and let truth be what it is. Let it all be what it is. I guess the Mueller report's not coming out until Thursday, so we'll see how badly redacted it is. But rumor has it it's coming out to both Congress and the public, so that tells me that we won't know anything. So we end up having a battle of wills and a battle of emotion and no integrity in the process. So perhaps this is indicative of something happening to make the integrity come back with the tower, some external force blowing things off so that we can see the truth of things, allow spirit to inform all of that. But we'll see. In any event, okay, I guess that's it. Just see how that resonates for you today. Again, sometimes we get in the way of things changing. So that's another thing I want to leave you with. Don't stand in the way. If something needs to come apart, it needs to come apart because there's deception. There's a lack of clarity. There are things happening that shouldn't be. And it's causing something that's a problem. And so sometimes we work very, very hard, like in the example of the passive-aggressive family, basically, of everybody living in service to that one person that can't seem to be anything but passive-aggressive with the family. And so everybody's trying to keep everything, but that's my point. If you keep everything in that one spot, you never allow for anything else to happen. You never allow for the possibility that mom or dad or whoever, is the passive aggressive person in the family. You never give those people the opportunity to change because you're enabling, that, because it's just easier, isn't it? It's easier to deal with somebody like that by just doing it and get it over with, The problem is when we do that, it reinforces that behavior that needs to stop. Okay. Being around somebody like that is exhausting. Okay. It's just exhausting. And it can be vampiric in its energy. So if you're in a situation like that, allow it to fall apart. Just allow it to fall apart. And when the dust settles, maybe you can actually have the conversation that you need to have. Like, if you want, in other words, from here on out, if you sit there and say, I'm hungry, no one's going to get up and fix you anything. So you either ask one of us to do it and give us the opportunity to say yes or no, integrity in the relationship, right? Or we're not going to even respond to you. See, that's one solution to deal with someone who is passive aggressive in how they interact, is to just give them no attention, don't respond at all. The last thing you want to do is give them what they want. Okay, you don't want to do that, because all it does is you create a monster basically that you can't ever control at that point. And then you need this to happen. I knew somebody, great guy. He passed away some years ago. It happened before he had hepatitis C. He got it in the military when he was over in Vietnam. So it lay dormant for a long time and then came out, and he had rounds of the medicines, and that's before the new stuff now that's out. He was on a transplant wait list, and it just, didn't happen. And so he died. But we were having a conversation one time, and he got hooked up with these two women that were roommates, and they were they were always in need. Everyone else was supposed to save them from everything. If they didn't have enough money, if he was with them, they would just stand there and wait for him to offer, right? And he finally broke up with them. I mean, they weren't involved or anything. It wasn't like that. It was just that they were his neighbors, and like two houses down or something, and they depended on him totally. And these two girls, I knew them, and there was nothing helpless about them. This was a game. And eventually, what happened is the tower got blown off because he got mad. And we were talking about this. He says, he says, I do this. He says, I never say anything. I never, he says, I enable all this stuff. And then when I can't take it anymore, instead of just calmly saying, you know what, I'm done, and this is why, and I'm gonna go home now, and you're gonna take care of your life, and we're not gonna play this game anymore. Instead, he blows up, right? He says, I know I do it. I shouldn't do it. I should manage this from the get-go. I'm just like, yeah, you should, they're taking advantage of you, hon. And he's like, yeah, I know, but there was something in him, he was ill. He needed to be relevant. He needed to be needed, so you can see how these things can really get out of hand. So when you're dealing with somebody that is manipulative like that and passive aggressive and just wants to deal, they go from a position of strength. It's like they take, and I got to tell you, as much as you might think the aggressive side is awful, and it is, it's the passive side, I think, that's the most powerful with these people. The ones that will just sit, and wait and hold court. Mothers-in-law are famous for this. I'm not, because I don't behave that way, but mothers-in-law can do this as well. I've heard horror stories where mothers-in-law will just sit there and wait, and everybody is just supposed to run around and make mama happy. It's like, no, 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 no. No, don't play that game. Blow the tower off. Allow higher self to inform. Have a better interaction. It's okay to grow. Anyhow. All right. Well, I will see you guys tomorrow. Thanks so much for stopping by again. I do appreciate it. And be good to yourself. Be good to one another. And blessed be.